All right. Thanks for joining me. Nobody yet. I'll wait a little while and see if anybody's going to come in here. I'll probably edit all this blank space and stuff down into a shorter video after the live stream plays, but for now it's probably going to be a lot of blankness. Say hello in the chat if you have gotten in here late and maybe went back and saw this. I don't know how that would happen, that you would come in and be here and know something that happened before. And, whatever. Hope you're having a good weekend. That's kind of a loaded statement in 2020. I don't think, it's like if a whole year is like a giant pile of crap, like a big swimming pool of crap, any day would be a part, like a spot in that pool. So wherever you're at, whatever day you're on, if it's a weekend or weekday or whatever it is, you're still in a pool of crap. So try to have a good day. I know you're surrounded by crap. You're in a pool of crap. Nothing but crap behind you, nothing but crap ahead of you. But, keep your head above the crap. Just check and make sure the sound's working. That you guys are getting everything, since no one's in here to be like, the mic's off. So what I wanted to talk about today, I'll just jump into it. We'll just get started, and if someone comes in here, I'll try to keep an eye. But actually how I'm doing this, I'll describe it real quick. On my right, I have a PC, a large PC, with an application going that I can stream out what you guys are seeing. And then on my left, I have a little tablet going with the chat, so I can see who's in there, and if somebody says hello, then I can type hello to them. Like I think I saw someone pop in. I'll just say hello. They'll be like, this is lame, and they're going to pop right out. So predicted it. It might be lame now, but people, luck and opportunity, I don't believe really in luck. I believe that people take the time and have the patience to see things that, may be a train wreck in parts, but in different parts it's going to be like, okay, that's really interesting. I'm learning something. That's probably what this is. I'll explain first off, if you're new and watching this later, that I have autism. I have a problem with language. I don't think in language, so I'll think of things and then I have to kind of interpret it into words that humans can understand, and it's hard for me to form language. It's even harder for me to understand it from other people. So when I'm talking to people, I can understand them, don't get me wrong, but it just takes a lot of work, and it doesn't happen automatically. The way that people use words, the way that we assume things, the way that things are contextualized by the person who's speaking and the person who's listening, all of that stuff just doesn't work like people would expect it to work in me because of autism. So that's something that I've had to adapt to, but I do want to explain that I may not be able to speak well or properly or use the right words, like the tenses and all of that. I am just trying to get language out of my head that evolves from the thoughts, the little bubbles of, I can't even explain it. It's kind of like this, I don't know. It just doesn't even have words. I can't explain how it works. But there's like these ideas and they're floating around and I understand them, but I don't understand them in language. I understand them in a different way that words can't explain. And then I have to figure out, how do I explain what that is in my head with words? And then I get to a really cool idea, like the ones I've been sharing over the last few years, which is a nice segue into what I've been doing in the last few weeks. So this is what I used to do before I'm going to go down my page. This is my web page, or my YouTube channel. I've been doing this for a few years now. I have hundreds and hundreds of hours that I've invested into this for nothing, for free. Basically, I haven't earned really any money like you would traditionally off of YouTube. If I've earned anything, it's just a broader audience and a market that I can sell my art to. So I make things like this. All of this stuff is me. I do all kinds of different things. If some people might go to my channel and look at the videos and be like it's just a re-upload mishmash of all kinds of different. No, this is all me. This is all the art that I do. I do everything. That's autism. Right there. It's not enough for a person with autism to just know a little bit about something. They have to know everything there is about it. And most people with autism that I know will have like a narrow group of interests that they really get into, and I'm kind of no exception. But my interest in art is really, really broad, and I'm not afraid to try anything. Just an expressive person. I play music, I write, I do computer math, generative art, procedural art. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, and I don't want to bore you with it. And sometimes that's a put off and it makes people sick. It's like, God, I can't even draw a stick figure. Look at this guy. It's like, I want to say it's like the plight of a tortured artist, that I constantly have to have my mind going. It constantly has to be active. It's doing it anyway. I just got to give it stuff to. It's like a wood chipper that's on all the time, and I got to put wood in it and just grind it up. Otherwise, I get really anxious. I don't feel right. So that's kind of what YouTube has been for me. And over this year, things have gotten really bad as far as my ability to deal with all of it. It's kind of like Trump psychosis, I guess. So just to kind of familiarity kind of helps a little bit alleviate the anxiety. It's desensitizing. So I started following the protests because I was hearing all kinds of scary stuff about the protests. Didn't know who to believe, what to believe. So I went to the Facebook Live and YouTube Live and Twitch Live and found the different streamers that were covering the various protests, and I started watching those. I was off work because of COVID, looking for a job. And in the meanwhile, I really didn't have anything else to do, so I'm just watching these protests. And there were things happening. I was watching live when the Kenosha thing happened. I was watching live when the Portland Molotov cocktails were happening. I was watching live when the police got shot in Kentucky. And all those things just, I don't know, it's like a kick in the chest. It's like, we can't act like this. We can't do this. We're supposed to be civilized. I mean, it's just been hundreds of years of being together in society, and all of a sudden, we can't get along after 100 years or 150 years. It's just too much for us to get along. It's like it's a kick in the balls to all of the decades and the century before where people did try to get along, and now we can't. So we really do have to kind of look back and see, how did we get along? Most of how we got along, when you look back, is the controls were stronger and more pervasive. Now those controls are starting to fall apart because of instant communications, the information age. Those controls don't work as well now, so they're kind of falling apart, and that's why people are not getting along. Because the power class knows that if you can't control the flow of information, then you poison it. And that's what we're seeing now, and that's why there's so much divisiveness. So a part of the poisoned information is trying to present it in a way that's as unbiased and just as raw and real as actually just the information that's there. You should be able to extract that information and draw the same conclusion, right? No. People can watch the same exact scene and extract two different realities from it. This was such a huge problem. I'm like, okay, if I don't do something, if evil triumphs when good people do nothing. And I feel like if I don't get some kind of counter information, if I don't provide some perspective that people can trace back and look and see, then everybody, I don't want to make it that easy for the power class to poison everything. So these are my attempts to try and get a perspective out there that's not shaped by the power class. One that comes from just a regular person facing the regular everyday challenges that most Americans face that gets totally ignored by the power class, the political class, the professional class, the media class, the corporate class, the military industrial complex. All of it doesn't care. We're just an ends to a mean, or a means to an ends to them. And I just kind of wanted to help expose that. There are lots of people doing this, and I feel like the more voices that we can get doing it, the more salient and pervasive it becomes. So it kind of is like, oh, more people are saying this, it gives it weight and validity. So in the course of doing all of these videos here, let me explain something here. First of all, up until this point, you can scroll down here, it's 200 and some odd plus videos. My channel had, I don't know, not very many views. Altogether, over 3 years, it was less than, I think it was around 120,000 views, which isn't a lot for hundreds of videos, several years. Each video was getting maybe a dozen views altogether. And I couldn't get any more penetration than that. I was just starting, and I didn't have the 1,000. Once you get 1,000 subscribers, you get a little bit more weight in the suggested. So once I reached that point, I thought maybe it'll take off a little bit more, and it wasn't really doing any better. Didn't feel like I was getting any more views, and I just wanted to take my channel up a notch, I guess is what I could say. No, everyone was watching the protests. Everyone was watching all this violence and stuff go off and forming their opinions, which I thought were based in misinformation and disinformation. And I wanted a chance to maybe see what I could put out there, and if my channel took off from that, then we'd see how it would go, because it would show that there's a more of a demand for it. Because personally, I feel like art right now is kind of superfluous. I can't sell it. No one has any money. No one knows what the future is. Everything's shut down. I sell to tourists. There are no tourists during COVID. No one's traveling anywhere. What if they could travel? They'd have to drive through fire, because everything's on fire out here. So I mean, it's just one thing after another, and I've just completely given up on making and selling art. Instead, I have to work on making things better, and that's kind of what this is. And I didn't feel like I was going to get anywhere. I was like, oh, it would just be 12 viewers here. But those 12 viewers, each person who sees this, they might tell a few people, and it kind of spreads. It arms them with information that they can share and maybe persuade somebody else. So that's kind of my goal in that regard. So I thought, just a few people would be, that would be great. Well, as soon as I upload these videos, as soon as it's carnage and death and violence and all that nasty stuff, you just get lots of views. So this video, 11,000 views, 8K on this one, 3,000. There's one up here. I have a couple of these locked down because it didn't work out for me. Let's see, up here, there's a really big one, 25,000 views. And I got that in like almost a 24-hour period. It's the best video I've ever had. I can't monetize it. I wasn't able to monetize then because I didn't have the watch hours. But posting these videos, I got the watch hours real quick. And I'm like, oh, I got an audience that I can reach, and I'm wanting to say this stuff to an audience, so that works out, right? No, it doesn't. You're either preaching to the choir, people who already agree with your point, or you're speaking to people who do not want to hear anything you have to say. So there'd just be no persuading them. And there might be some people in between, but hell, I wouldn't know it. So I started getting lots of subscribers. A lot of people were commenting and stuff, and I have never had to hide so many users. I've never had to erase so many comments and mitigate a lot of the stuff that could come back on me. When people make comments in another person's video, I don't know what they think they're doing, but that can affect the person whose channel that is in a very adverse way. If you're doing it deliberately, stop. If you're doing it accidentally, think about it. But whatever it is, it's going to get erased because you simply have to do due diligence and make sure that people aren't going against the YouTube policies. And I don't want to aid in that. So I've got to go through and erase all these videos that or erase all the comments that the algorithm didn't flag because people use code words that the algorithm hasn't caught on to yet, or they say it in a very esoteric way, but you know exactly what they're talking about. And I had to hide some users. There were lots of comments I didn't agree with that I left because it's fair to have both sides. The points that they were using that I didn't agree with, I wanted there to be an opportunity for another commenter to come along and be like, okay, well, I see it this way, to counter that. So to get some dialogue going. So you have to have both sides there. I didn't want to just leave one side of it. Well, in doing that, it may have, there may be some confirmation bias for a lot of people who are viewing, who think that I'm right-leaning, proud boy, in support of putting down the protests, and I'm anti-Antifa, and I'm not pro-Antifa, I'm not anti-Antifa, I'm just an observer, essentially, trying to figure out what the hell is going on, and if I happen to talk about either of those groups, then it's just in the course of sharing information. I'm not endorsing one side or the other, but there seems to be a large segment of people who have actually subscribed to my channel, who have misunderstood who I am or what I am about. And I'm not trying to ride the fence. I want to make it very clear. But when I put those videos out there, I wanted them to be kind of inert. I wanted them to be impartial. And when you do that, you essentially just make them more attachable for either side, because they don't really have a weight that says this doesn't belong to you. So people attach to it through confirmation bias. So I kind of have to set the record straight that I believe in the people's rights to protest. I believe that sometimes those protests are going to get ugly, and that's simply a reflection of how people are ignored and why they have to protest in the first place. I don't agree with the ugliness. I would rather see there be some response, some meaningful response, so that we don't have people protesting and feeling like they're ignored. But you know, the more you ignore people, the more they're going to amp it up. And that's why we have 100 and whatever odd days, 30 some odd days of protests now, because people are going to continue to protest as long as they feel they're ignored, and as long as there are these examples that people can perceive support that assertion. It just reaffirms, and it makes everything happen all over again. So if you make any headway, maybe people are getting tired or whatever, the next event happens and it just lights everything up again. So we're not making any headway. Protesters aren't going away. Our leaders have already proven that they don't care about us unless you own property, unless you're a business owner, unless you're well connected in the community. Your opinion, your life, your freedom, your liberty, your happiness, none of that matters. You don't matter. It's only once you're a member of that club do you have a voice, and that's fundamentally wrong. That's wrong. And if people can't see that, I'm just sorry about it. And if you see it that way, unsubscribe. I really don't want you as a subscriber. I've been doing this for years without subscribers, without people watching, and if those are the people subscribing and those are the people watching, then I don't want it. And you can continue to subscribe and watch. If you don't agree with me, that's fine. I watch and subscribe to people I don't agree with just because I like to keep an eye on it, and every once in a while, even people you don't agree with will say something that you do agree with. So it's important to keep an open mind. So for that reason, sure, stay subscribed. But honestly, I really don't. I don't feel like I can change your mind. And if you subscribed because you think that I think like you, you're wrong. And if you want to stay here, hopefully I can change your mind. Otherwise, you're probably just going to be a troll, and I'm going to hide you anyway. That's the best thing that there ever was on YouTube, is hide user. It really is good. If you could get two users that you want to hide that can go back and forth in cyberspace somewhere and just keep them busy, that would be even better. See if they can figure that out. So I'm doing a few things as political commentary. I have a few videos that are very specific, like the broken news, which I started out in one format. I kind of changed it a little bit. The broken news, the sidebar, and then I just kind of I was doing some commentary and stuff, but I think I'm going to integrate it all into these two things, the broken news and then the sidebar presents. The sidebar is more of a commentary, snarky satire that is calling out the bullshit. It's essentially, if you've ever watched the news and yelled at the TV, that's what the sidebar is. It's whatever people are yelling at the TV at the time. I kind of like it. I need to work on it a little bit. It's rough around the edges, but I think if I keep doing it, it's going to turn into something really good. And if you're new here, you're at the very beginnings of something that could be like a mainstay. It could turn into something. You'd be like, yeah, I was there at the very beginning. That'd be awesome. So I have no favorites when it comes to calling out bullshit on people. I pull no punches. I don't care who you are. If you're someone I support, I'll call bullshit. If you're somebody I don't support, I'll definitely call bullshit. But I'm not holding anything back. If it's Trump, if it's Kamala Harris, if it's AOC, if it's Pence or Bernie Sanders or Barack Obama, Michelle, it doesn't matter. Hillary, it doesn't matter who it is. If you're fucking up, I'm going to call it out. So I think that's pretty much it for this video. I just wanted to let people know why I'm doing what I'm doing is because if I don't, I'll implode. There's so much. When I wake up in the morning, I'm like, oh my God, the challenges that I face. And for what promise? For what future? It's just an endless road of challenges. No one wants to wake up to that. So I have to say something about it, especially when the people that are supposed to help are feeding us a line of bullcrap, and it seems like no one in the mainstream media is calling them out. No one's talking about it. Everyone's taking it one way when they should be taking it another. You can never take anything that anyone says at face value. I'll tell you that right at the very beginning. No one in politics has ever been authentic. Ever. You can't be. You just can't be. If you're authentic, you're eventually going to gaffe, or you're going to say something that's going to isolate your base somehow, and it's just going to be over for you. You have to be very considerate and thoughtful and diplomatic in what you're thinking and what you're saying, even if that diplomacy serves a certain sector of the population and pisses everybody else off. You still have to follow that line, so you never really get any truth or authenticity from your politicians. We probably couldn't handle it. Like I said, if we got it, it would piss us off. They'd say something like, how many people like Joe Rogan? But he's said things that's irritated people and, have put people off. So you can't be authentic and be a politician because at some point your base is going to shift. You can never really count on who your base is because it's always dropping off and shifting and changing. Wasn't it Joe Rogan? I think maybe this is a little bit of a side tangent, but since I'm in here by myself, why not? Joe Rogan was talking to someone, I wish I could remember who it was. Maybe I'll post it in the description or in the comments, about how the Proud Boys started. Did anyone catch this podcast? And Gavin MacLeod, is that his name? I'm sorry, I'm so vague on this. It's kind of like in the half of my brain that's, you saw this. But it started out as like a goof, right? It was just a goof, and people kind of latched onto it, and then they identified it in a strangely contextualized way that wasn't anything like how it started. And now it's just snowballed into its own thing, where people contribute money to an organization that's non-taxable. Funny how that happens. It happens to everything. Black Lives Matter, that's a non-taxable organization now. And whenever you have something that turns into an organization, you get the professional class in there. And the professional class almost always represents the power class's interests and not the interests of the people on the bottom, who Black Lives Matter almost by definition represents that, because people feel like they're on the bottom, like they're just trampled on, they're treated like dirt. And then you have professional class that comes in, infiltrates the movement, changes its whole platform, sanitizes it, makes it soft and cuddly and fun for everyone, when the whole idea was never like that. You see it with everything. This isn't new. We saw it back in the 60s with the Nation of Islam, Malcolm X, and Elijah Muhammad, and how there was a division there, and how a white power class came in and just messed everything up and undermined everything, and essentially shut down the civil rights movement for 25, 30 years. So the thing about the Proud Boys is how easily you can have a goof turn into a movement or turn into something with some power, because people with power will always attach on to, they follow the light, they follow the limelight. They're like anti-roaches. Instead of running from the light, they follow it. They always want to be in it because that's where the power is. It's the views, it's the voice, it's the access. Because wherever the light is, that's where you've got to go. And the people that are in the light always control that access, and that's how you get the gatekeepers to the power class. And I could draw a flow chart and just go on and on. I've definitely given it a considerable amount of thought. I gave it a lot of thought before I went to college. I gave it a lot of thought when I was in college, and I gave it a lot of thought when I dropped out of college as a senior undergraduate, a bachelor's degree in science, business science. By the time I was almost ready to get my bachelor's degree, I was smart enough to realize how shitty everything was, how rigged and broken it was, and how much I didn't want to be a part of that system. The whole reason why I went into business was so that I could sell art, and so I can make art and then sell it, and know how to do that as a business, marketing and pricing and all the accounting and everything that you have to do. It's considerable, and that's why a lot of people, artists, don't want to be bothered with that. They'll just go to a gallerist and let them worry about all of it and then give them 40% of their take. I just couldn't afford to do that, and because of autism, I like to blame autism for almost everything in my life, but really this is one of the things that autism was an authentic contributor to why I couldn't plug into the gallery system, because I just don't, I don't know, just all the anxiety and how it would break me in certain ways psychologically, how it may shape how I am as an artist, how I express myself. I'm very fearful about all of that stuff. I'm very guarded, and because I'm not open to it, I'm not excited about it, and it's not something that I pursue as an artist. I just don't want to be in a gallery. I don't have any desire to be in galleries across the United States. I have no appeal to that market personally. Maybe my art does. Me personally, I just don't. I hate how the industry destroys art as a way for people to improve their lives. There are gatekeepers in the art industry. There are barriers to entry. There's all that stuff. It's very political, and if you're trying to be an artist and you're trying to be sincere and genuine in your expression, it's hard to plug into that unless you're of a certain caliber, and by then you've been vetted by the power class. Every success doesn't just happen. Everyone's vetted by the power class. There are people who had great chances at being successful, but they weren't a part of the power class, so they weren't given that opportunity. And we never hear about these people. You actually have to go to libraries and dig into books that no one knows exists, and read things from people that no one knows exist in order to know they exist. You're not going to get it from anybody. You got to go out and get it yourself. Is there anything else I was going to talk about in here? Hopefully I'll cut this down, trim some of this out, trim some of it out. Just kind of a rambling about mainly my subscribers, and I've been noticing, but I've always had my subscription count's always just kind of gone trickling up, and there's not a lot of down. I lose subscribers every once in a while, but by and large I don't have huge swings. Well, since I've been doing the news and politics and commentary, I've had wild swings all over the place now. I'll lose 10 subscribers at once. I don't know what I said. And I might gain 10 subscribers at once, and then later on lose 5 subscribers. It's back and forth, and it's bothering me a little bit because I feel like I want to hit a mark and I want that to be solid, and it feels like I'm hitting a mark and everything's just exploding. So I never know what to count on at the end. All I can do in that case is just continue to say what I say, think what I think, share what I can with you, and then you guys are free to make your own decision, make your own determination. If what I'm saying resonates with you, then it reinforces your own beliefs and your own ideas, and it arms you with another way of explaining that to people. That's my whole goal here, is to just arm people with the perspective. So if they have a chance of persuading someone and changing their mind, and I'm not even out to change people's minds. If your opinion and your beliefs are rooted in some sound reasoning and facts and reality, then I'm all for it. I can't argue against it. That's where mine's rooted, I hope. But if your opinions and beliefs are rooted in misinformation, disinformation, propaganda, whatever you heard at the water cooler, whatever you overheard at Walmart, that's not going to work. And I'm going to use my best persuasive logic and critical thinking skills to try to reach you, because I don't want you to go through life with all of this bullcrap shaping your behavior, because it's starting to spill over into my life, and that's where I have a problem. If you want to believe what you want to believe, that's fine. You want to act how you want to act, that's fine. But when it spills over into my life while I'm doing my best to keep my life from spilling over to yours, I'm going to have a problem. And I'm going to have to speak up, and I'm going to have to try and change your mind, because in my view, you're wrong. So that's kind of what I'm doing, but you can't just come out and say, hey, you're wrong. You're absolutely freaking wrong, and here's why, and expect to change anyone's mind. So you kind of got to be diplomatic. You got to come at it at an angle. You've got to get people to experience some analog and then reason for themselves through that experience what you're trying to get them to see, right? The water's there, just drink. That's all I'm trying to do. So that's it, I guess, for this episode. It's too bad nobody came in here to join me, but like I said, not a lot of people know that I do these now. I don't really announce them, so you kind of have to be looking out. If you want to know they're here, if you're watching this later and you want to know these are going on, subscribe, hit the bell. If you like me or not, doesn't matter. You can subscribe. I'm not going to stop you from it. But hopefully what I say, what I'm saying, the stuff that I'm pointing out will resonate, and people be like, oh yeah, that's why I feel that way, or oh yeah, that's a great way of putting into words what I was thinking about that. Because not a lot of people, I don't have a great ability with language, but I know a lot of it, and I can write and I can make words. It's just it's hard to do it on the fly, and kind of an impromptu way, and I have to think about things. When I write, it's really good. So if you want to check out some of my writing, which is news and politically oriented, you can follow me on Facebook. I have a lot of writings there that break down everything from the business side of the economy and why things don't quite work out that way, the hypocrisy of our politicians and the inner workings of the power class, and kind of define a lot of the things that I talk about here. So I encourage you to check those out. They can be lengthy. They're usually around 1,000 to 3,000 words, so they are kind of news article links. But it's a good way of, I feel like I had a really good way of putting something, and I shared it with people. And if you want to see that, I encourage you to check it out and give me a like if you like it. Well, let's see, how much time do I got here? I got about 15 more minutes left to this. I'm not sure what to do or talk about. I could look through things. Let's do the cafe style news. We can do that here for the next 15 minutes. I'll just go through my phone and look at my news and see what's going on. We'll talk about that for a minute. Are you guys scared of murder hornets? What's with this? I'm not even sure what's going on with the murder hornets. It seems like whenever there's a news cycle or something in the news, it serves as a distraction from something else that's going on. So when you start seeing, oh, murder hornets, it's like, oh, a squirrel. I feel like the murder hornets are that. So it's just one more thing we need, right? Now murder hornets. Shit. Zombie cats. That will be the next thing. There's some stuff I haven't really looked into, but I thought I probably should. But I looked at the source and I'm like, eh. I see the sources like CNN, Clinton News Network. I'm like, forget about it. NBC, give me a break. They all suck. They really do suck. Every single one of them. Any mainstream news, it's like the old days of the penny press, where there was a million presses, a million newspapers, and every one of them was owned by a politician. No one ever got the news. All they got was just a mouthpiece for whoever wanted to get elected for whatever reason. Oh, Kevin Leary's going to give us advice on what we should do since we're not going to get the $1,200 checks. He says we don't need them. Oh, Jesus Christ, Kevin O'Leary. Holy freaking cow. I could go on for an hour just about that guy. I loved, what was it, Dragon's Den or Shark Tank or whatever the hell it was. I watched that all the time when I was in business college. It was something that I would apply my knowledge of business to, and it seemed like it was a great exercise. But then Kevin O'Leary, they all would pipe off with stuff that's just like, listen to yourselves, really. This is when I realized I needed to drop out of business. Because the culture of business is money. That's the lifeblood of any business. Anyone in business will tell you that money is the lifeblood, is what makes things go. But what they fail to take into account is that blood on its own doesn't keep you alive. Oxygen keeps you alive. So what is the oxygen going into the system? Well, the oxygen is the people that are in the organization, the human beings that any organization, any capital creating endeavor is supposed to do. It's supposed to support the people. That's what it's there for. But in the culture of business, business supports itself for business sake, and the people are simply just a cog in the wheel. And that's why capitalism sucks so bad right now. There are some businesses that do focus on the people as the main primary component of the business, such that if they're not able to take care of the business or take care of the people in the business, they close the business because they understand that otherwise it's just the business staying in business for itself. And that's what happens when you marginalize wages, when you cut people's benefits down to absolutely nothing. You're saying the business is more important than the people. And that's what's wrong with business in America, and that's what's wrong with Kevin O'Leary, and that's what's wrong with these venture capitalists, because it's always money is the blood, and they forget that blood needs oxygen. It needs to not be poisoned, it needs to not be thick, it needs to not be clotted, it needs to be all kinds of things. So we can just take this blood analogy to the nth degree and it falls apart immediately when you think about how blood is just one component and it's not even the most important. Yes, it is important. If a body doesn't have blood, it can't do its things. But if it doesn't have oxygen, it doesn't matter how much blood you have, right? So the people are the most important thing. And I'm glad I had enough time to get that off my chest. Thanks, Kevin O'Leary. Seeing your irritating face reminded me of that. And then you scroll down one more, you see a pile of donuts, which that's pretty cool. And then Mike Pence's stupid face. And then Ted Cruz's stupider face. And we've got this Supreme Court nominee's stupid face. Look how young she is. She'll be ruling over our great-grandchildren. Holy shitballs. What happens when they find a way to keep people alive forever? Then what? We'll never have any new Supreme Court justices. We'll have to change the law. And here's another thing about the news feed that I get. As soon as I do a keyword search on anything, because I research a lot of stuff, I spout off a lot of information. I like to double check to make sure it's okay, especially when it only takes 2 seconds and we've got the whole internet. There's no reason why anybody's saying anything that's wrong. And I still say stuff that's wrong. But it's usually because I've made a miscalculation in my brain. I looked up Martha's Vineyard because I wanted to see how big President Obama's Martha's Vineyard estate is. I was curious because we were given a message that we were supposed to somehow relate to, of somebody who is presuming to relate to us, and then meanwhile they're in this place that's it's the most exclusive places of exclusive places on planet Earth, and somehow anything you tell us from there we're supposed to believe or think is meaningful. To me it just felt like a bunch of crap. And of course I'm referring to Michelle Obama's PSA on your voice doesn't matter unless you agree with the people that we support. Something about don't waste your vote. We got the people from St. Louis, that couple from St. Louis, the Black Lives Matter was walking through their gated neighborhood to get to somebody else's house, and they came out with machine guns and handguns and waved them at everybody. I think they were kind of like early for the party on that one. They'd been all right if they stayed inside their house, and then once people started breaking in the windows and throwing rocks and stuff, then you can come out and start showing a weapon. But I mean, as soon as people walk by, I mean, it could have been an impromptu parade or whatever it is. I'm being bullshitty now, but whatever's going on, you just don't come out with a gun and start waving it at people. I mean, come on, back the blue. You call the police, jerks. Rudy Giuliani coughing through his interview, waiting for his COVID test, trying to bullshit us about it. He's going to have a hard time bullshitting us about it when he's on a ventilator. And that'll never happen because these people get like the best medicine there is in the world, right? The rest of us, we get sent home. Now, if you start having complications, like if you're unconscious and you're turning blue, you're going to want to get to the emergency room. That's the advice you get. When it's too late to help you, that's when you need to go. I guess that's pretty much it in the news. How much more time do I got here? About 7 more minutes for anyone to drop in and say hello. I'm getting a total blank from this, probably because I said the F word. What'd y'all think of Eddie Van Halen? Downer, I know. I'm sorry. Really sorry about it. I was talking to my dad about this yesterday. My dad's in his 70s. And we were talking about all the people that were dying from COVID, and he's like, at my age, it adds to it. So many of my friends, every time I go to, because he goes to certain campgrounds every year and meets up with the same people his age, and every year he goes and there's fewer and fewer people. And he's like, this last time I went, there was like only 10% of the people that are usually there were there, and the rest of them were dead. And it was like, something just swept through. This was before COVID. So they're just that age. Once you start getting a certain age, there's a bracket there where everyone just drops off. And my dad was talking about that and how It's not just the people, your friends and stuff that go away. It's the culture, the times. There's not many people who are alive that understand what it was like when you were a kid and can relate to the world that you grew up in. For my dad and his father, that difference wasn't that huge, but for like me and my dad, the difference between what it was like when he grew up and what it was like when I grew up was like a different planet altogether. So to have a living memory of his childhood is really important, and it's going away quickly. And the reason why I mention that is because Eddie Van Halen in a lot of ways represents that for me. He represents the beginning of a culture in music. He created a sound that people emulated afterwards, a look that people emulated afterwards, and it's really important to that. And whenever somebody who's important to the foundation of something goes away, it makes you think that the memory of that is probably going to go away soon too. And the best thing that we have now that my dad didn't have for his childhood is he didn't have Facebook to capture everything. He didn't have YouTube to have videos of everything that can really take a good snapshot of the zeitgeist of that time. So in modern times, the future, if we survive, if we don't destroy ourselves, the future will have a good look at what will become a surrogate for the living memory. And that's pretty awesome. That's encouraging. Especially in Eddie Van Halen's case, we have all of his music, we have his concerts, just the decades of work that he's provided to us for our enjoyment and inspiration, especially. My uncle, on my mother's side, her brother was a really great guitarist, and I remember him showing the family. He's like, "Oh yeah, listen to this," and he showed a video of Eddie Van Halen playing, just shredding the crap out of the guitar with that finger stuff that he does. Like playing piano, makes 5 fingers out of one, or 6 or 8 fingers out of one hand. But he's showing us that. It's really awesome, and then my uncle's trying to do it too, and that's just a really good memory that I have of not only being inspired by a musician, but seeing my uncle, who I look up to as a musician, be inspired by another musician. So you kind of see that it's not a competition in art so much as it is a collaboration, because everybody takes ideas from everybody else. And good job, Eddie Van Halen, for being a part of that, and he will be deeply missed. So I guess in this last 4 minutes, now somebody's finally popped in, last 4 minutes here. If anyone wants to chat or talk or pop in here, if you're watching later, if you want to leave a comment, I'll try to reply to that. See if there's anything else going on in the news. My news feed that I get, of course, it's geared to your search and your lifestyle. You never really get the news. You get a curated view of the world based on what you interact with most. And my keywords are all over the place. I'm constantly afraid I'm going to get a knock at the door and it's the NSA. I'm going to get arrested for some reason, just because my keywords are so weird. And about things that you don't like to do searches for. I go to the CIA World Fact Book all the time to look up world facts. And even then I'm kind of like, which country do I click on? This country, Am I going to get a dossier if I look at the facts of North Korea, or if I look at the facts of Iran or Iraq? Kind of makes you wonder. So if you've joined me live, thank you for that. Appreciate you watching, checking it out. Scroll back, see what else I had to say. It's just a psychotic, Trump psychosis-induced delirium. So that's pretty enjoyable. Everyone loves a train wreck. Okay, somebody else has jumped in here. It is a really hard change from what I was doing before as just an artist, showing my different work, crafts, just everything. A lot of it was some really hard work. Some of it was enjoyable. Here I went to Sky Lakes here in Oregon, Lithia Park, here where I live, Siskiyou National Forest behind where I live. So that's fun. I make these little crafts. I sell these through Facebook. That's been how I've been able to pay my rent while I'm off work because of COVID. Now I'm back work a regular job because that nobody has any money for me to sell art. So I've pretty much stopped doing it for sale, and I'm focusing on trying to make the environment better so that I can get back to selling it faster, because it looks like now, if things keep going the way they are, it'll be 12 to 15 years before I'll be able to work as a full-time artist again, and by then I'll probably be dead. I'm not getting any younger, and I don't have the best lifestyle. I mean, I'm not absolutely sedentary. I smoke. That's probably not helping me. I drink a little bit, but not a lot. I probably need to drink more, to be honest. I'd probably feel better. It's just art for everybody. All kinds of different stuff. And no one wants to look at that. That's the stuff that I can monetize, that YouTube will let me monetize. Nobody wants to look at it. I have less views on all the videos you're watching right now than I do on a single video up here that YouTube won't let me monetize because it's too violent. Reality's too violent, you all. If it's too violent for YouTube, I feel like it's too violent for life. You can't show reality on YouTube. It could bother people. And if you do show reality, you can't make money off of it. You can't make money off of reality. You can't make a living. So some of these videos that are controversial, they don't have monetization on them. If it is reality, then I probably will not monetize it if it does allow me to monetize it, simply because the subject matter just is kind of gruesome to think that somebody's making money off of that. You know, somebody got shot, put in a hospital, somebody got lit on fire, they got burns and scars, people got shot and killed. And then there are people that are making money off of those videos, and you know, that's not a solid feeling for me. I don't like that. But on my commentary, what I do talk about, I put work into that. I think about it. It takes me time. I have to have coffee while I do that. I have to have a place with electricity and internet. That all costs money, and that time is time that I could be doing a regular paying job. But no, instead I'm doing this for free, basically. Just because I want to make things better so that I can sell art again and live off of my art sales within the next 10 years. I tried this before in 2007 and 2008. Y'all know what happened then? Everything went in the crapper. And it took 10 years for me to get back to where I even had a chance to being a working artist again. And then once I was about ready to start and do that again, the floor came out from under me again. So now I have to plan and re-strategize and go without and hope I live long enough so that I could eventually be a working artist for a half a percentage of my life. I get to be a working artist. I spent my whole life trying to be an artist, and every time I try to make a living off of it, there's no market out there. Nobody has any money. People are being thrown out of their homes, so what are you going to put a picture on? Where are you going to put a painting? On your tent? And that's what's happening right now. No one's buying art. What are they going to put it in their tarp-covered car that's on the streets in Venice Beach? Give me a break. So that's what this is. If anyone wants to know, I'm just trying to make things better. The hardest part of making things better is just getting through the bull crap. And most of the bullcrap is just rhetorical nonsense that people are trained to buy. They're trained to plug into rhetorical fallacies like ad hominem fallacy. We see that every day in advertising. It's so pervasive we almost think it's real. And then when our politicians do it, we believe it, and then it turns out to be something that you can't count on. It's a false, it's fake. So cutting through the rhetorical nonsense requires a little bit of critical thinking. You have to be aware of that these devices exist, and you have to understand how they're being used. And then once you do that, you can see through it. You hear what they're saying. And it's not the words that's coming out of their mouth. It's the message. It's the message that the words are alluding to that you have to pay attention to, because it's telling you more about the truth, and it's revealing the lies in the words that are actually being said. And that's my goal in this channel. That's what I want to do. Hopefully I can get that done. I think we're at the top of the hour. I'm a little bit past my time. Thanks for joining me if you are here live. If you're showing up later, thanks again. If you want more of these, if you want to be notified when I do go live or do a premiere, hit the bell, hit subscribe, hit the bell. And if you have any questions, please leave those in the comments, and I'll try to get back to you with an answer. Hopefully it won't be a comment or a trolly bullcrap I have to hide the user. So until next time, you guys, take care.